I bought a bunch of veneer a while ago. I made a video about a laser cut QR code and I did some other crap with it, but it turned out to be much more work than I was willing to do, and me being lazy, I just kind of put it aside, and that was the end of it. But I'm doing something with that now. When you're using veneer, proper tools are kind of important. You know, like some sort of very powerful hydraulic press, possibly a vacuum table, vacuum press, something like that. Since I didn't have access to that, I thought just like putting a couple books on top would be enough, and it wasn't, and I made something that looked terrible. But I decided to cover for that by like tearing it up, sanding it, staining it, and then I actually took a blowtorch to it and burned it up and covered it with resin, and trying to recover from my horrible mistake, I think actually made it look a hell of a lot cooler than my original plan called for. So I'm doing that again right here. This time, some buckets of paint. Here's my veneer. So just gonna take these off. Alright, let's see what we have under here. So as you can see, I've cut out a wooden Okay, this turned out a hell of a lot better than last time. I was hoping to make this video about how you can screw up horribly and turn a mistake into something awesome, but I haven't screwed up this time. Damn it, I can't even screw up right? Oh, I suck. Now I'm just going to take the razor blade and cut out, cut off the excess and all that kind of stuff. That requires two hands to do safely. Okay, so now what we have looks like a solid block of oak, when actually it is a piece of very cheap Douglas fir ply. It's actually 3 pieces of ply glued together. Now, the oak veneer that I'm using was stored in a damp basement environment for about 3 years, so it's hard to see on camera, but it's actually got a fair number of ripples in it, and there are some cracks and splits. If I were to keep it as is, it would just make me look like an incompetent woodworker. So it's kind of, you take it to the extreme and make it look intentional, and then people will think you're just doing something different for the sake of being creative. So that's a good way to make a mistake. So one of the things I'm going to do first is try to pick at the edges and find little bits that will lift, and I'm actually going to tear any of those off if I can. And that'll reveal the crappy fur underneath. And once that's done, I'm going to sand the crap out of everything with an aggressive sandpaper, either 60 or 80 grit. From there, I'll stain it again. You can see the areas where I've peeled off some of the veneer, and I've put down a coat of stain. I believe it's a dark walnut or something. Normally I wouldn't use a stain this dark on a block of oak, but most of this is going to be sanded off, so you really won't see it. The main thing I'm looking for is, number one, see how it doesn't soak into these areas because they were saturated with glue earlier? That's what I want, stuff that makes it look as terrible as possible. Now is the part that works better in video than it does in real life. I'm going to wait for the stain to dry, so the next cut will be tomorrow. Happy tomorrow. As you can see, I've sanded off a lot of the stain, and it's really, changed the texture quite a bit. Now it's time for a more fun antiquing technique that varies the color quite nicely, I think. Now, to make it very shiny, I'm going to use some of this kind of stuff, the EnviroTex Lite pour-on resin. I think using this stuff deserves its own separate video, so that will be posted later. Now, once you have the resin on, it gives an absolutely beautiful shiny finish. This is it after one thin coat. Before putting it on display, I will add a second coat to even it out. After the EnviroTex was dry, I popped some LEDs on the back. I think these LEDs are also deserving of their own instructional video, so I'll cover that separately. A link to that will be posted in the future. Here's a nice close-up of the texture. So as you can see, they are backlit using the LEDs, and they're very shiny up front, which makes them difficult to photograph, but I think it's pretty cool. So that's the one that was made in this video, and here was the one from the first thing that I didn't video. So as you can see, those are the LEDs, and that's roughly what the object looks like. But I'm going to brighten this up a little bit so you can see some of the wood texture, which, you know, I think has a nice antique-y look, but that crazy varnish on top gives it also a modern thing. So it's a very nice contrast between really rustic and beaten up and just shiny and pretty. Who doesn't think shiny stuff is pretty?